And what a roster it was. All are white, and 8 of the 11 are men, the New York Times reported, and virtually all had credentials as conservative in their interpretations of the U.S. Constitution. Donald Trump's terrific list of fabulous judges, read the headline of a blog post on the website of the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank. Anti-abortion activist Marjorie Dannenfelser told The Washington Times that Trump's was an exceptionally strong list of jurists with immense respect for our founding documents. She hoped that pro-life voters would not sit out the coming election. But Trump's opponents recognize that a legislative nope is going to be a heavy lift. Any nominee will need confirmation from the U.S. Senate, where Republicans have a 51-49 majority, with Vice President Mike Pence, who presides over the chamber, available to break a tie. Although some believe that Democrats will retake the Senate in November, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, has said he will push for a vote before then. In fact, he has until next January, when the next Congress will be seated. McConnell must keep the Democrats from using a McConnell tactic, that is, killing the nomination by delaying it indefinitely. That was the wily Kentuckian's successful game plan after President Obama nominated Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court in 2016. The nomination expired in early 2017. Murkowski, Republican of Alaska, told a reporter on Tuesday afternoon that a nominee's views on a woman's right to an abortion would be a factor in her eventual vote. "I don't think anyone has ever suggested that I'm a pushover on any Supreme Court nomination," she said. Collins, Republican of Maine, voiced a similar sentiment. "I view Roe v. Wade as being settled law. It's clearly precedent, and I always look for judges who respect precedent," she said of the 1973 ruling that legalized abortion. Many fear that another conservative Supreme Court justice would, at the very least, allow states to enact more onerous restrictions on abortion, if not overturn the Roe decision wholesale. Both Collins and Murkowski voted for Trump's previous Supreme Court nominee, Neil Gorsuch, who Trump critics believe took the seat that rightfully belonged to Garland, the withdrawn Obama nominee. Yet the statements by Murkowski and Collins, who did not respond to additional requests for comment by Newspulse News, left some slight hope for liberals that Democrats, joined by a handful of moderate Republicans, could hold the line against a radical Trump-nominated jurist. Linda Sarsour, an activist and a co-chair of the 2017 Women's March, said she and her allies on the left were looking for vulnerable Republicans whose perilous electoral prospects made them open to entreaties from liberals. She mentioned, in particular, Senator Dean Heller of Nevada, whose seat Democrats believe they can win. Sarsour also believes that Senator Jeff Flake, the Arizona Republican who is a frequent critic of Trump, could do wonders for his widely rumored presidential ambitions if he stood up to Trump. Still, she recognized how grim the situation was. "We are in a crisis," Sarsour said late Tuesday evening, as she left a meeting at a Washington, D.C., church where she and others were organizing what she said would be a series of civil disobedience actions against the Trump administration. "Unfortunately, there's not many things we can do." Despite that recognition, liberal groups in Washington huddled on Tuesday, furiously drawing up battle plans. One was Elizabeth Beavers, Associate Policy Director for Indivisible, a group that opposes the Trump administration. Beavers worries that the eventual nominee will do the standard song and dance about following precedent and following the law of the land, in particular regarding abortion, gun rights, and civil liberties. Virtually every nominee to the Supreme Court has made such assurances in recent times, largely to avoid borking, to use the term based on the unsuccessful 1987 nomination of outspoken conservative Robert Bork to the court by Ronald Reagan. "Chuck Schumer has some work to do here to keep his caucus in line," Beavers said, referring to the New York Democrat and Senate Minority Leader. At the same time, Indivisible is urging its members to call their senators to demand that the eventual nominee receive a tough hearing. Such a grassroots campaign aimed at Republican legislators proved successful in the winter and spring of 2017, when it seemed that Republicans were poised to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. Shortly after news of Kennedy's retirement broke, several civil rights organizations held a telephone briefing with journalists. Vanita Gupta, who headed the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice for 2+ years under President Obama and is now chief executive of the Leadership Conference, an advocacy group, labeled all of Trump's nominees extremist culture warriors. She, and others, echoed the language that McConnell used after Obama nominated Garland to the Supreme Court in the spring of 2016. No one should be considered for the Supreme Court until the people have a say in the November midterm elections, she said on the call, echoing precisely the majority leader's stubborn refusal to hold hearings on Garland's nomination, which he maintained throughout that summer and fall. McConnell's strategy seemed risky, as it would only reinforce the image of an utterly broken Congress. And while it would prevent Obama's nominee from getting confirmed, the conventional wisdom went, President Hillary Clinton would simply install her own liberal judge on the court. But the gambit worked, giving Trump his first successful Supreme Court nomination, that of Gorsuch. Now comes a second. Some liberals praised the Gorsuch nomination, seeing little point in putting up a fight. There may be more of a point today, but the result may be the same. Susan Loeb Block, who teaches constitutional law at the Georgetown University Law Center and is an expert on the Supreme Court, predicted that Trump will have his way. The person, she told Newspulse News, will probably get confirmed before the election. More Newspulse News stories on Anthony Kennedy's retirement.